Welcome to the Fit Affiliate podcast, where we talk about behavior and behavior-based conversations as they relate to CrossFit affiliate owners and coaches. My name's Lisa Hetherington, and I'm your co-host. Sitting alongside me are Tony and Chuck, the founders of Fit Affiliate. And welcome back to another episode of the Fit Affiliate podcast, joined today by Chuck and Tony. How are you guys?
So good.
You were going to say boys. I knew it.
Yeah, I absolutely was going to say boys, and I just changed it last minute. You always know me so well.
I'm good. Things are good. How are you? Actually, I think for the record, I think everybody should know, and I'm sure they don't know, what time it is for you while you record these things. Tell them what time it is.
It's 2:30 a.m.
Yes.
My time.
You heard that right.
Yes.
She's
yes.
That shit crazy.
Well, it's worth it for the conversations.
Fair enough. Carry on. My swift friend.
So today, gentlemen, I thought something we would talk about is why people want help but either don't want to ask or don't follow through on the ask. So, as affiliate owners, you've had lots of people send, inquiries or lead forms, and then, you never hear again, they don't respond, or even, with Fit Affiliate, people would reach out, slide into your DMs, and then, nothing else. They want the answers, but don't necessarily want to commit to it. So I thought it was a good, interesting little piece around people's behavior and maybe some thoughts around that.
Let's just go right into it. I mean, there's one part of that too that I think that you didn't touch on is also why the people who are in the midst of getting help don't do the things that they are being told to do, that they decide on their own to, in fact, help them. Help is an interesting word. Where do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the reaching out, and then we can segue into then when they eventually get help, why aren't they doing the thing that's going to help them?
So relative to us, or just like human nature?
Just relative to human nature or your experiences in your own gyms or Fit Affiliate.
Okay, so have you found people that have reached out to you to inquire about getting on board to the gym or joining the fitness thing, and then you're like, hello, I answered your questions. Yep. Would you like to do the thing?
Yep. And multiple times I've had some people that have sent me 5, inquiry things over the years, and it's like, yep, you're a repeat offender, but you're still not talking to me.
Yeah, like, humans are creatures of habit, and we like homeostasis, and generally for most people, like, where they're at is working to some degree. Like, they may be in a tremendous amount of pain. They might be incredibly unhappy, but relative to the most basic of human functions, they're surviving. And anything that creates any interruption in that homeostasis, regardless of how good it is, how logical it is, or how productive it is, like, at some level, it is working very much so against who we are and how we operate. You guys can keep talking. Actually, from having listened to a handful of our podcasts in the last couple of weeks, I got to sort out where my headphone microphone is, because I noticed that my stuff doesn't get picked up super well. But anyway, yeah, just like on some level, it breaks homeostasis. And so that, no matter what, new actions will always be hard because they're new actions. But I'll be right back.
Yep. Okay. Tony, the floor is yours.
I'm now recording on the default, so I'm probably going to be soft-spoken, Tony, which is probably a good thing, because I for sure noticed that I am louder. But there's really a lot to unpack in this, right? I mean, as a gym owner, you have no doubt faced it, and it is comical, right? The ones who reach out multiple times. I often wonder if they think that we're going to remember them, right? Because I'm like, it's been 3 years. I still remember you, Susan. I remember you wasting my time 3 years ago, and I'm remembering it today. Humans are generally very, very motivated humans in one regard and one regard only. All humans are motivated solely motivated by the avoidance of discomfort. I think we've talked about this before. In that it's not sex, it's not money, it's not health, it's not anything that motivates people. It's just that people do not like to be uncomfortable. And they will do pretty much anything that they can to avoid said perceived, if only even perceived, discomfort. So as a species, humans are generally always looking to escape something, right? Some degree of discomfort that they're currently facing, whether that be a lack of money, or that be a lack of health, or that be a lack of understanding, whatever that is. All humans are trying to escape from something and to arrive at something else. We call that the escape and arrival framework. That's very much the framework that we use for persuasion as it applies to teaching you guys how to move people to action. But the thing that really truly moves people to action, or really impedes their action, is what we call the action paradigm, which is that people will not take action until that they are sure that the result is within their purview or their possibility, right? And so the way that we typically word that is that people will not take action until the pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of change. Right?
Mm.
So that's the first reason why most people don't necessarily take action. They're well aware of the fact there's a problem. They're well aware of the fact there's probably a solution. They're not entirely sure what the solution feels like. And so that discomfort outweighs their current level of discomfort, which impedes them from taking action. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I guess I shouldn't be asking you. I should be asking everybody else listening, but you can't respond. So just everybody nod in agreement. So that's the first big problem that affects people taking action. The second one is a more interesting and insidious one, and that is that people generally are looking for help, not because they want help at all, but they're looking for a place to abdicate responsibility. Probably on the high side of like 70% of the help that most people seek is not truly because they want to solve their own problem. They would like to displace the responsibility of which they need to solve their own problem and place it on something else so that it is something else's fault when it doesn't work, right? And that is a conversation of limiting beliefs, which usually leads to people not taking any action, mainly because most people feel so lost they can't possibly fathom that there's a solution or that there's help out there for them, because, well, to believe that there's help out there would allow you to believe that train is very loud out there. Sorry if that's loud. Would allow you to believe that you've been in possession of that solution all along. If that makes sense.
Yep.
And that's what gets in the way.
And I think sometimes too, people think that by clicking on a link and filling out a form, they've taken action, and then
Bingo.
They can say to their friends, I asked about joining the gym, and that's, I'm looking into it, and so they believe in their mind they've taken action without actually then following through. That feels like it's enough at that point, and they probably click on 1,000, links to inquire about things that they have zero intention of actually being, wanting to do.
Yeah, I mean, and what precedes that is like, most people, 82% of dollars are spent, like from a marketing perspective, after the seventh point of contact, like at or after. It's like where most things go down. And for a lot of people, did they take an action that they have not taken in the past? Yeah. So like it is a forward step, and that's a really difficult thing. So specifically for gym owners relative to the inquiry, especially when they move into paid marketing, that's a super mindfucky thing that most people have never been exposed to that, because up until they generally move into some kind of like paid traffic or advertising, the majority of the people like really reaching out are reaching out because more often than not, they actually do want to do something about it and change. But when we start getting into generating larger volumes of exposure and traffic for a lot of people, that first action, that was the action that they needed to take to feel as though they're moving in the right direction. And it's not that they're not moving in the right direction. And that is also an important recognition of like, that is somebody moving from just, a prospect to a cold lead to a warmer lead. Yeah, man, humans are fucking hilarious. We've built this entire world and society around us, and society and technology have advanced far faster than humanity and sociology. We're not too far removed from like a bunch of stoned apes wandering around in the jungle eating mushrooms and apples.
Well, that's how we got to where we are, right? I mean, we're the only species on the planet, at least that I think we're aware of to a certain degree, maybe monkeys, but we're the only ones who are uniquely capable of advancing our disposition, right? A lion is born a lion and they just do lion shit until they die, right? Humans, however, we can create tools and we can create solutions and we can create different methods of advancing both our current situation, but our entire species as a whole. And that's essentially how we got out of there. I mean, so we could really get into the weeds into like the biology of action in terms of why people are driven the way that they are. I mean, as it applies to this conversation, I think that universally it's that if you're listening to this, you're probably in some degree of discomfort with the current business that you have. You're also uniquely human. And that means that you as a species are generally very curious and you're also very much interested in advancement, right? I mean, that's why the biology there, the two culprits being dopamine and serotonin. So like back to your clicking on the button thing, some people do so little for themselves that simply truly clicking on that button is essentially like a mouse basically hitting a dopamine signal, right? It's that dopamine is not the reward hormone, it's the anticipation hormone. So like just clicking that button and truly opening up the realm of possibility is enough for them to be like dopamine. And then like most drugs, they black out and forget what they did and then they'll follow through with it, right? But serotonin is what pulls us through that process. And so it's the question of how do you elicit and how do you incite that serotonin response that people become, because serotonin is the process-driven hormone, right? It's the one that feels good when you do things and you do them regularly and you're getting somewhere. And so we're all drawn by that, right? So like affiliate owners, we're uniquely in possession of something that's frustrating. We're also uniquely human. And so those two things combined usually lead you guys to look for no shortage of solutions. And I think that that's the third paralyzing part of this is that I know what your inbox looks like. There's 4,000 people who are offering to fill your gym at any given moment. And you and I both know they're all full of shit. So now you don't even know where to go get help because you're like, you want help, you need help. Dopamine says, let's go get help. Serotonin is like, yeah, me too. And then your brain, that 3-pound anticipation mechanism in your brain is like, I don't trust anybody. And that's why we don't get anywhere.
Yep. And it's true. Like you do have all those emails and it's like, early in my evolution as an affiliate owner, you do click on them and go, oh yeah, well, you can get me 50 leads in 1 week. And you believe it. And then time and time again, at 0 results. So you get a little bit jaded to it and go, you don't know my business. You can't help me.
Or
My
God
business is
forbid,
unique.
what if it did work out? I mean, fuck, for how many people, if that materialized, like, hey, you got 50 leads to follow up with this week, they'd be like, so anyway, I don't check my email or answer the phone in my gym, but I'm not sure why there's no dollars in the bank account. Anyway, no, there's a funny like meme that I'll fucking for sure misquote, but it's just like this whole conversation reminds me of it is how crazy was it for all the cavemen eating, mushrooms for the first time? Like what? Well, that one tastes like beef. That one killed Brian. This one makes you trip balls. Like, who knows? It's just.
Can we stay right there for a second and talk about mushrooms? At what point in the low point of food existence for our species did we look at a mushroom as like, looks edible? Like, I've never seen a mushroom that was like, that looks delicious.
Oh, you never been like hungry. When I was in survival
that low
school,
point must have been like, I'm going to eat that one that's growing on poop. Yeah. I'm going to eat that poop one. And then all of a sudden, nobody's seen Chuck for 7 days because he's been on the glory trip.
we don't stop laughing. Lots of hugs and laughing.
Hugs and laughing.
Well, and like, that also like that conditions us. So if we just look at like basic pieces of like where society's ended up, do we have social conditioning that is super conflicted because we're supposed to ask for help, but we're also supposed to solve our own problems? We're supposed to help people and ask for help ourselves, but not be a burden or an inconvenience. And so like we've juxtaposed like a million things it's already hard to recognize a problem to ask for help. And then we've built a bunch of pieces of like repetitive operant conditioning around like, I don't know, both glorifying it and vilifying it at the same time. So like what a crazy mixed message and signal to all of us.
Yeah, so true.
Even you, especially like, so I've got a 4-year-old. I think most people would probably know that if they're listening, but if you didn't, I've got a 4-year-old. And being around his school, his playmates, his friends, like it is an endless contradiction in and of itself, because the kid gets hurt or something gets broken. Why didn't you ask for help? But also at the same point, the kid wants a thing or wants help with a thing, and it's, oh, you can do it yourself. And like all of us go through that process. And everybody's like, oh yeah, for sure. I see people do that with their kids all the time. They're like, actually, my parents did that with me the entire time. It's like, well, it's no small fucking wonder. Like, it doesn't work with our neurotransmitters. It doesn't work with our hormones on a pretty basic level. Homeostasis is like safety home base for like every piece of us. And wherever we're at least alive, because otherwise you're dead. So survivability exists. But then like, we've had mixed messages about the nature of asking for, receiving, or engaging in help our entire lives.
I mean, and that's, I think, what brings us full circle, right? It says, so like, we understand the mechanism of action. The pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of change. Therefore, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take action because this is truly uncomfortable. And now we're in possession of something that is identified as discomfort, most likely your business if you're listening to this. And we also are aware of the biochemistry of why solving said problem feels good. But we're faced with, again, this paralyzing notion of like, who do we trust? And what I think is interesting about this conversation, at least on this podcast, is that what is ironic is that we know we need help. We know that getting help feels good, but we're not willing to get help because we don't trust the solution. And why I think that this is so cool or so unique is that everybody that's listening to this, for the most part, I assume owns a gym, and this is your problem too, right? Because like, you're in the help industry. You've made a business out of getting people to believe that you are the solution to their problems and that help is out there and that you can help their problems. And yet you are still reluctant to get help yourself. What's up with that? Like, help exists. Help is needed. That the only solution to solving your potential client's problem is them getting help because they're the person who got themselves into this situation to begin with. So they need you. And their life truly depends on it. Well, same thing applies to the gym owner, right? They need help. Who do you trust? That's up to you to decide. But the reality is that it's all trial and error. You can go with what you need to go with. But the one thing that I think paralyzes the whole industry, and not only on our side, which is, helping gym owners, but also paralyzes the people who are seeking gym owners to help them with their fitness problem, is that information doesn't work. And so that's what matters, right? The thing that works is the thing that works, and that is coaching works, right? You know that you can solve anybody's problems that come into your gym because you're going to coach them. And what that means is, even if you don't know what's wrong, through your coaching skill set, you're going to get to learn what's affecting them. You're going to learn how to better address what's affecting them, and you're going to solve the problem with them, even if that means you have to learn alongside them. That's what has to happen in the business too. The problem is that most people who are offering you a solution, they're trying to give you a program. They're trying to give you information, and all that's going to do is paralyze you in taking no action, because that's going to seem overwhelming. That's going to seem daunting. That's going to seem way more uncomfortable than your current position. And therefore, you just assume, I'll just figure it out on my own. But figuring it out on your own got you to here. You need a coach. And that's really the coaching sort of paradox.
And I think then people get stuck in that, people who call themselves coaches, but they're really just got a standard system and process. They're just going to tell you what to do. And then you go, okay, that doesn't fit with what I want, who I am, where I'm at, and then stop taking action. And then you're just in this loop of, well, nobody can help because nobody understands my thing. My thing is unique.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've put no shortage of energy into trying to explain the difference between training and coaching, and that training is physical and coaching is behavioral as it applies to working with clients. And I for sure am not a person who thinks that people need less access to help into coaching. So I'm not asking for like licensure or like credentials or any sort of accreditation. But I do think the world would be much better served if everybody knew what lane that they were actually driving in and offering to help, right? Like, and because so many people just don't know, right? They truly don't realize that they're not a coach. They just think that like anything that is generally helping in nature means that I'm coaching you, but it doesn't. And I think it'll probably end up being like my life's work to get people to understand the difference between training, teaching, and coaching. But man, is there a huge difference. And the people who need help, they need coaches. Sometimes you guys need information. And at that point, a coach can tell you, like, listen, this is your weak spot. Go get help in this specific thing. But aside from that, in order for you to get better, somebody's going to have to take an objective look at what's going wrong to make a better educated decision as to what needs to be addressed and what needs to be solved.
So then I guess from that, if we head down the path of, why are people then not taking the actions from, they've made the step, they're getting the help, and then not doing the things that are going to help push them forward or fix their problem or improve their situation, that they get stuck.
Because change is hard, work is hard, new things could be better or worse, and the unknown is fucking terrifying and exciting. I mean, like, isn't that like, a big piece of the nature of like just the things that tear at our soul and make us want to pull our hair out? It's like, why am I not doing the thing I know I should be doing? I know I need to do this thing. Why am I not doing it? Why am I the way that I am? Because you're a human.
Yeah. Well, we all know we need to eat more broccoli and drink more water, but it seems to be a hard thing to do across the board.
Wild. It's wild.
Well, I mean, you need to eat more broccoli unless you're broccoli reactive, right? And so then you don't need to eat more broccoli. And this is the problem, right? Because now we've taken something that would be so simple and so objective, and now obfuscation has completely confused the people. And this is the problem with information in general. To just blankly tell you, eat more broccoli and drink more water, I know for sure that that's probably going to work. But that's not the problem. The problem is why you're not eating more broccoli and drinking more water. The problem is why you don't want to. The problem is your behavior. And this is the reason why coaching is so important, because coaching is behavioral. It's stepping back, and instead of telling you just what to do, it's understanding why you're not doing it and then affecting for a positive outcome. And that doesn't work at scale. I know, because we built the business. It's hard, right? It's very difficult to be intimately intertwined with every single client to look at foundationally what they're doing wrong, why they're doing it, and then solve for it. It's way better in terms of economy of scale and profitability to just write down blanket advice and then sell it to you. That scales to the moon. It's easy. But there's no shortage of solutions there. There's a reason why we're the only one who does it the way that we do it. Maybe it's because we're fucked up, but it's also just because it works, and it works because we're coaches. And that's really what it comes down to. But people are paralyzed by an overabundance of information, right? Like the big paralyzing, you would think that in the information age, we should just be amazing, right? But the one thing that is very certain is that humans with open-ended, unparalleled access to information are not getting any smarter. In fact, quite the opposite, right? You only got to spend a couple of minutes on social media to be like, oh, how far we've fallen, right? And like every answer you could ever possibly conceive of is at the end of a Google search. But also, any solution or any answer you are searching for is also at the end of that solution. So what we have gotten to this increase of information is a loss of critical thinking. Very few humans have the ability to step back and think critically and creatively because we don't need to do it anymore, right? Like you don't need to be creative. You can just go Google the answer. You don't have to think critically because you can just go see what somebody else did. And so those two skill sets are lost, but those are two skill sets that coaching pulls forward that nothing else does. And that's why I think that the coach is probably one of the greatest in-demand positions for the foreseeable future, because coaches are unlike teachers. Coaches are unlike trainers. Coaches are the only people who are pulling forth critical thinking and creativity, because a coach just says, why? Right? And then it forces you to examine your thought-making process. It forces you to examine your potential solutions. It forces you to get creative in terms of how you want to solve that. And that's unique to coaching. everything else is a Google search and a quick answer away. And I think that because of that, as a species, we've lost that ability.
And I think one of the big questions that, since in our chats, in my sessions, sounds like a psychotherapy thing, but in our meetings each week is like, is it a problem or are you making it one? And it makes you step back because you can convince yourself and tell yourself all these stories about something that is a major fire. And then when you think critically about it and someone asks you the right questions, it's like, oh, no, maybe it's not really that important.
Humans aren't rational.
Mm.
So
we can justify anything.
Yeah, I mean, in any time you ever find yourself uniquely disappointed in another human, it's generally the same thing, right? You're exasperated and you're upset because like they just acted so illogically and so irrationally, and you're like, what were they thinking? That's the problem. They were thinking, right? And like that's all good things come from that, and all bad things come at the same time. But without the ability to think critically and creatively, the only thing you're really left with is anxiety. And that's really where most people go to. They just put those monsters back underneath their bed.
And they get bigger and bigger.
They do. Yeah. Maybe back to like, earlier in the conversation, another thing to consider too is that how we're really hardwired is like, the conservation of energy and effort. And, even when people get some type of advice, guidance, they have asked for help, they do have a solution presented to them. And Tony had mentioned earlier, like the thing that normally prompts them along is some amount of certainty in the success of that thing. Because what if I spend this time, energy, and money and it doesn't work out? Then not only do I have the previously existing problem, I have also wasted time, energy, and money, and now I have to feel fucking stupid about wasting all of that too. And so maybe like a good reframe that's at least something useful to come out of like otherwise just like a lot of ranting and rambling is, do you have the ability to choose a viewpoint and a framework for yourself to deliberately look for positives and wins? Did doing that thing at least move you closer to the thing? Even if it didn't make you closer to the thing, do you at least have a better awareness of at least one thing that doesn't work? Do you know why that thing didn't work? So, I don't know, shoot shots and send it. And even if you fuck up and fail, at least hopefully you learn and you're working on failing forward. Not that this was like specific to any of the stuff today, but it was we were on a call with a client 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were just talking about the rate of business failure globally, and everybody throws around that 90% of businesses don't make it longer than 5 years, and it's actually a worse statistic than that, but that's like a pretty commonly thrown around one. But do you know what population of the planet are business owners? Tony, what was it? You looked it up.
So
0.03%.
Yeah, 0.03. 0.03.
So 0.03 of 1% of the planet is responsible for 100% of the businesses. And so if we know that over 90% of those businesses fail, like what does that tell us? That like everybody that's winning and succeeding only does it because they're failing forward. Like numerically, objectively, like that has to be true. And I think like that was that, that's never a thing that's like lost on us, but until like we had really built the awareness of how few people own businesses and the realization that most businesses fail, it's that most business owners fail forward into figuring it out. They're like, hey, I was bad at this skill set. What's a business that I can find that like the skill set doesn't handicap me? Or like, hey, we had this, this, and this, but we were missing these people. Ooh, I'm going to go and do it again, and I'm going to find somebody with that superpower. Or like, hey, maybe my skill set exceeds my opportunity, and I just don't care about this thing anymore. Well, like, is it still that the business failed? And so, I think part of the reason that people fail to consistently ask for help and then follow some of that, even when they have asked for it and gotten it, is like, have we defined any universal metrics of success? And we generally don't. And in reality, even if we did, they wouldn't matter because everything exists on a continuum. And like, Tony mentioned earlier, we move people through the escape and arrival framework. Well, like, hey, are you closer to arriving than you were before you asked for this help? Yeah. Even though you took this action and it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, are you further from the pain? Have you escaped some degree, even if it is that you just have some amount of clarity on at least I know that this answer isn't it? Hey, that mushroom, that's the mushroom that killed Brian. Everybody, no more of those mushrooms. But that mushroom over there was really good, and that one made us feel really good, so we'll still keep trying some other ones.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so like, I guess as a recap, right? Like, we understand the mechanism through which people take action, right? So we talked about this, but it's the pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of change. And so if that's the case, then and then they now become aware of their problem, and now they're also aware of the mechanism behind their problem, and now we're also aware of the monster under the bed, which is the overabundance of information, right? Which is usually the last paralyzing thing that stops people from taking action. So that means that the antidote to inaction truly becomes critical thinking and creativity, right? In that if you know you need to take action and you know why you're driven as a species to take action, but you find yourself not taking action, what you are not in possession of is the ability to think critically about the problem. And so what this really comes down to is the solution for creative thinking or critical thinking and creativity is the conversation of objectivity versus subjectivity. The very nature of most thought processes are subjective, right? We tend to be very emotional, very reactive, very anxious about any action that we take. By finding a way to make things objective versus subjective allows us to think critically about the problem and creatively in terms of the solution, right? And so this is the big mechanism that drives forward the whole process of failure. It doesn't matter what your problem is, we will find a way to objectify it, make it objective so that we know that we are moving closer to its solution, regardless of how long that duration will take. We know that any incremental action to that point is moving forward. For those of you guys who are in possession of the need of help, you are in possession of the mechanism hormonally to get help, and you find yourself being overwhelmed, you just need to ask yourself better objective questions. How will I know that this thing can help me? Or do I just feel like it will? Because if the answer is it feels like it will, it's probably not going to be the thing that's going to help you, right? Like for us, simply put, we just won't even take you if we can't help you. If we can't objectively, metrically help you and create that scorecard and prove how it's going to happen, we just wouldn't even take you on. And anybody who intends to help you should be able to tell you that exact same thing. Just think logically. And that's the antidote to inaction. You need to be able to think critically and creatively.
And then take the action.
Well, the action just follows at that point, right? Because creativity is basically the spice of life. I mean, anybody who's creative is certainly not at a loss for action.
Yep.
Right? Any creative human is probably creatively toiling all the time.
Yeah, is it productive? Creative people stay busy as shit, but it's not always directed in the most useful directions relative to the outcomes that need to be elicited.
Creative minus critical thought is exactly that. You're going to basically just be painting Van Goghs in the corner that are never going to see the light of day. So you might want to be critical about the creativity.
And since alliteration is good, clarity breeds competence, and competence breeds action. And so earlier, the mention of like people want to know that the thing is actually going to work for them. Not only like, does this thing work, this advice, this help, whatever, like, does it work for a person like me in a situation like my own, but like, am I capable of doing the thing? And so for a lot of people, they ask, right? Like, I want to lose weight. What should I do? Eat broccoli and drink water. I've heard that before. So boom, we're done here. I'm probably not going to do it because we both know that. But it's like, hey, today, go to the grocery store, buy 3 steamer bags of broccoli. You're going to eat one of those steamer bags of broccoli each day for the next 3 days. You're also going to drink like this much water at these times. Does that seem reasonable? Do you think that you could do that? Yeah. It's still the exact same fucking advice. It's just repackaged differently in a way that provides some amount of clarity. And that clarity gives them the confidence to do the thing. Like most people, if there is some gap, like let's assume that like somebody is listening to this and they're like, why do I not do the things that I know that I need to do? Do you actually know what you need to do? If you do know what you need to do as the overall end goal, do you know the steps that start moving you in that direction? Do you have enough clarity to at least take the next step, even if you don't know the step beyond that? Do we have the ability to move one step, one day, 1 hour, one action, one whatever at a time? And so that's probably like the missing piece for a lot of people, is that they don't have some concept of an overall plan, and how like the thing that I asked for help for that you're trying to give me, I still don't really understand how it gets me from right here to over there. And like a big part of it was like when we made the Fitfiliate roadmap, like as a 1-page digital PDF, it's like, cool, this is how it works. You start here. These are the steps that happen over the course of your project to move you to success. And for a lot of people, just having that small piece of clarity of like how the help actually plays out, that's huge. And then the last piece of it, and it's in every piece of like successful marketing and copy, and it's a tale as old as time. There has to be a call to action. Like there has to be. That's how humans work. A hero meets a guide who gives them a plan and then calls them to action. Like it's so old, it's fucking biblical, right? Like this carpenter was doing some shit, and then God was like, yo, homie, this is the plan. I need you to go do that and preach these things. Luke Skywalker met Obi-Wan, who gave him a plan to train and develop as a Jedi and called him to action to go and fight the forces that be on the dark side. So, like, somebody that is asking for help, like, they're that character. They're the hero. They're going to the guide. The guide is anybody that's asking them for help. And then if the guide can actually give them a plan that has some amount of clarity to it, but then also like, okay, now do the thing. Like, click the button. Sign up here. Call number 1 is on this day at this time. Like, take these actions. And so if somebody is like, man, I feel lost, stuck, why am I not doing the thing that I know I need to do, or like not asking for help? Well, just ask for help. But when you do get that help, maybe reframe like, do I know what this help means? Do I know how this help gets me from where I'm at to where I want to be? And if not, then nothing's going to happen. And if you are in the place of giving advice or being a helpful human, most people still need the call to action.
Yep.
The call to action is super important. And Tony had mentioned in a different way earlier, is like a lot of people ask for help because they're trying to absolve themselves of responsibility. Like, well, I'm poor because your fucking money-making system didn't work for me. It's like, well, did I tell you to actually do it? Like, did I prompt you to like, hey, you've watched the videos, you've downloaded the fucking manuals, you've done the worksheets, now actually go and do the thing in real life.
Well, and it also comes down to, did I watch you do it? Right? I mean, did I observe you doing said thing? Because if I didn't, then all of the information in the world will fall potentially on deaf ears. And so when we built Fitfiliate, we were very certain on one thing, is that we weren't going to do information. We were not going to give more information, because it's really quite clear. Information is not the problem. It's really not the solution either, right? It's maybe in a lot of ways conditionally is the problem, and then there's too much of it. And so I would assume most people who are listening to this have probably at some point likely engaged in nutrition coaching with their clients. At least I hope, because it is the foundation of your pyramid. So please say yes. So if you've done it, you know one thing. Everybody knows what to do, right? There's no shortage of dietetic and nutritional information that exists anywhere on the planet. In fact, there's just too much of it. And that's the reason that we have this problem. We live in the information age, but we also live in the overweight age, right? And it's so interesting that people have more access than ever to information as to how to get skinnier than ever and lose more weight than ever, yet we are continuing to grow at an alarming rate. And that's because when there becomes an abundance of information, there is effectively no information, right? Because at that point, everybody gets paralyzed and gets shut down, because what happens as a human, when information is coming at you from every direction as it applies to the solution to your problem, you then begin to doubt that if it was that easy, everybody would be skinnier. And as I look around, nobody's skinny. So this must all be bullshit. Therefore, all help is wrong, right? And so what we needed to do as a nutrition coach was essentially, it didn't matter. You already knew how to eat well. You already knew what you should be eating. The question was then, why aren't you eating it? And that's the same approach we take to business. You don't need more information. We believe that you are uniquely in possession of the solution to your problem. You just need to be watched. You need to be observed, and you need to be asked, and you need to be guided, because information in many ways, rather than being the liberation for most people's situation, kind of becomes the thing that enslaves them to the problem. They become overwhelmed. As such, they become paralyzed, and all those reasons we talked about in terms of taking action don't exist. So if we can systematically eliminate all of those distractions and those limitations, they have no choice but to just do the work, right? And like that's really the essence of what happens with our coaching clients. But for the people who are listening to this who are not our clients, if you want to take action and you know you need to take action, and the writing is on the wall that if you don't, some bad things are coming, you simply just need to find a way to make things objective and then begin to improve them measurably, repeatedly, observedly, and improve them. That's it. Just like fitness.
Awesome. I think that's a really good point to end on.
I think that's how we end almost every single episode.
Yeah, it's a little Tony mic drop moment. So that's good.
Guess I should listen to more of them.
Well, do you feel that this was helpful? Do you think that we solved any problems?
I think so. I think it might spur some people to at least try and think a little more critically about why they're stuck and why they're not taking the steps to move forward.
I mean,
I just hope that
hope
people
for
know
anybody
that help
is...
is there.
Say that again?
I said, I just hope that people know that help is there and they're not so paralyzed with information that they don't believe that help exists anymore. And I think a lot of people sit in possession of that. But like the most successful examples of all situations in pretty much every scenario, every one of them has one thing in common. They all have a coach, because help is there. It's just the way that the help is delivered to you matters. And there's just a lot of people masquerading as coaches who are just not coaches. They don't mean anything bad by it. They're not malicious. They just don't understand the difference between coaching and training. And that's confused the situation. But every human needs a coach. Not every human needs a trainer.
And you're not a coach just because you transact information. Information solves fucking nothing, because we all have access to Google and YouTube. If information was the answer, we'd all be fucking billionaires with 8-packs.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's definitely the good note to end on. That's a quote to add in the show notes for sure. All right, guys. Thanks for another fun chat, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Thank you, my friend, for listening to the Fit Affiliate podcast. If you would be interested in hopping on a free call with us to just kind of chat about what you think your problems are and what you think the gap is between where you're at and where you want to go, we can see if maybe we can help you along that journey, figure out if we're all a good fit to do some sweet things together. So click the link, set up a consult. Let's help you identify some problems that we can mutually solve.